Stasis got a lot of changes this season, and it's made this Warlock build even better. Even with Stasis being pretty lackluster for a couple seasons, the Stasis Warlock has always stayed on top with this specific build. So now that we have a season that is based around Stasis and some changes that even came along with this season, it is time for this build to shine even more. So with that, I wanted to give a full refresher on what I think is one of the best Warlock builds in the entire game and update it to Season 23 standards so you all can have it ready to go. This build is going to grant you infinite grenade energy alongside making you pretty much unkillable and provide you one of the best crowd control abilities in the entire game. On top of the build being very strong, it is also a ton of fun to play, and it's something I would definitely recommend every single Warlock have at least in one of their loadouts. So from GMs, solo content, all the way to the snowy peaks of the new Warlord's Ruin Dungeon, this build has you covered. And speaking of snow, winter is the perfect time to cozy up with a game that you can invest a lot of time in. This amazing game has over 800 unique champions ranging from elves, orcs, dwarves, and even demons, so there is something for everyone. My personal favorite has to be Astrolon because he just looks absolutely insane. So once you've found your champions you like, you can take them into the brand new PvE content called the Cursed City. This is going to be a month-long excursion with over 100 stages to complete across 4 increasingly difficult districts. In the Cursed City, everyone will start at the same location, but you can choose your own path if you have your sights set on a different place. And of course, exploring the city, completing quests, and clearing stages will earn you great rewards. And if you have the skills to take on hard mode, it can even get you started on earning a mythical champion called Demon Spawn Carnage of the Anarch. And if that wasn't enough, Cursed City will actually reset each month with new battle conditions for stages and of course more rewards for you to claim. Now if you're in the festive spirit, from December 15th to January 10th, this game also has a special holiday themed event. Of course this will come with new mini games to solve and even a chance to win both in-game and real life prizes. And these prizes can range from epic to legendary champions to even Amazon gift cards. To get started, all you need to do is head over to raidxmas.polarium.com, and it's as simple as that. So with all that content and even more coming, now is the perfect time to start playing if you haven't already. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen to get some insane bonuses that are only available with my link. You will receive not one but 2 epic champions, with one being Lightsworn, a very strong supportive champion which you will unlock at the start, and then the second being Juliana, a very strong boss killer which you will receive at level 15. And of course, once you're in slaying your enemies, be sure to find me under the name Rest Assured, and you can join my clan, the Restroom, so we can dominate together. So be sure to hit my link in the description, and I will see you all on the battlefield. Thank you Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring today's video, and let's jump right into it. Alright, so starting off, I think we first need to take a look at our subclass so we can understand how everything else in the build will work into it. First off, we're going to have our aspect Ice Flare Bolts. So shattering a frozen target spawns seekers that track and freeze other nearby targets. So the whole point of this build is to try and freeze everything as much as you can. This just means now when you shatter that frozen target, you're going to spawn even more additional things that can freeze more targets. This can cause a very strong chain reaction, and it can lead to freezing a ton of enemies on the battlefield. And since you're going to be able to freeze targets all the time, you're going to have these going around everywhere. Now our next aspect is going to be Bleak Watchers. So press and hold the grenade button to convert your grenade into a stasis turret that fires slowing projectiles at nearby targets. The stasis turret is very strong for in-game content. Arguably, you don't really have to run this in lower tier content, and even in in-game content, just throwing your grenade alone is good enough. But with this, you can have a crazy amount of uptime. You can almost view it as a second teammate that is constantly slowing enemies over and over again. That slow will eventually lead to a freeze, and then once you shatter that frozen target, Ice Flare Bolts can proc, and this just means you have a little companion by your side freezing things that can freeze even more things once you broke the frozen thing. How many times am I going to say freeze in this video? But like I was saying, this is very good for in-game content, but if you don't want to run this, you can absolutely take something like Glacier Harvest, and even if you want to play into Frost Pulse, you absolutely could. But I do think taking Bleak Watcher specifically for in-game content is the way to go, and Ice Flare Bolts is almost a must. But let's take a look at our fragments and show how this will amplify it even more. So we have Whisper of Fissures, so increase the damage and size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. This is going to be nice because now every single target that you are freezing with this build, you will do more damage to them, and the radius of that explosion is going to be increased for even better ad clear. The other cool part of this is the fact that you are going to be able to make stasis crystals with this build, and this just means those explosions will also do more damage and have a bigger radius. Now our next fragment is going to be Whisper of Shards. So shattering a stasis crystal temporarily boosts your grenade recharge rate. Shattering additional stasis crystals increase the duration of this benefit. So with this proc, you're going to get 500% increased grenade recharge rate, which is absolutely insane. This can be reprocced each time you destroy a stasis crystal, and with this specific setup, you'll be able to have a permanent uptime of this, which just means you can spam even more grenades or even more stasis turrets. And now our next fragment is going to be Whisper of Chains. So while you're near frozen frozen targets or a friendly stasis crystal, you take reduced damage from targets. This is going to be one of the main fragments for your survivability. When you are near a frozen target or a stasis crystal, which you can make on demand, you're going to have 40% damage reduction. Since you're going to be able to freeze everything with this build at all times, while enemies are frozen, they're not going to be able to shoot you. And for the enemies that can, this just means now you're taking even less damage from them. This fragment is very strong with this build, and if you want to be as tanky as possible, this is definitely one I would recommend running. Now, our final fragment is going to be Whisper of Rending. So primary ammo weapons do increase damage to stasis crystals and frozen targets. This is going to be very nice because again, everything will be frozen at all times, and we're now going to have the ability to one-shot stasis crystals. And remember, when you destroy stasis crystals, you do get that 500% grenade recharge rate and that insane ad clear with Whisper of Fissures, so you want to be able to destroy them as fast as possible. Now, for the final things with the subclasses, make sure you run a Cold Snap Grenade because this will play into one of our exotics. And with your super Winter's Wrath, it is not the best super in the game, but it is okay for ad clear. So if you're ever in a sticky situation where you need to get something like a res, you definitely be sure to pop this and you for sure will get it because you can just freeze everything. But now jumping into our exotics, and I think we should first start off taking a look at Verglas Curve because this plays heavily into the things we're running with this build with our subclass. Now, this has the exotic perk Hell Barrage. Final blows with this weapon grant stasis arrows. Your next hipfire shot will fire all of them in a single volley. You can take advantage of that with Hellstorm, so direct hits with stasis arrows freeze combatants and slow opposing guardians. Stasis arrows that impact the environment create stasis crystals. And finally, if you have the catalyst, freezing or slowing a target grants this weapon faster draw speed for a short period of time. You don't need the catalyst for this weapon to perform well, but it is a nice benefit so you can draw it a lot faster. But the main thing is every single time you get a kill, you're going to load the stasis arrow up, and then once you hit fire the bow, if you hit a target, you will freeze them, and if you hit the environment, you make a stasis crystal. Both of these benefits are very strong, but for the most part, you want to try to make stasis crystals. Again, as we just went over everything in the subclass, you can make stasis crystals for damage reduction, you can get grenade recharge rate with stasis crystals, and you can even destroy them faster alongside providing them more damage and a bigger radius. Stasis crystals are very, very strong for this build, and this weapon just makes it extremely easy to keep them up. Now, on top of that, since you are running Whisper of Rending, you are going to do more damage with their primary weapon to the frozen targets, and since this is a bow, it already does a huge chunk of damage, so this just means for in-game content, you can constantly freeze enemies over and over again, and your bow can actually put out a decent amount of damage onto those frozen enemies. Verglas Curve is almost a must this build to keep the uptime going, but if you don't have it, running a legendary weapon with Headstone can also do the same thing, or even running something like Wicked Implement could also be pretty good as well. But with Verglas Curve, again, you have on-demand stasis crystals that you can use in every single part of your subclass. Now, for your other exotic, it's going to be the Osmiomancy glove. So this has the exotic perk Fervent Cold Snap. Your Cold Snap grenades have an additional charge that recharges quicker on direct impact. The seeker spawn from Cold Snap grenades travels further. This is why I said we're going to be running Cold Snap with this build. This is extremely nice because your Cold Snap grenades can freeze enemies like crazy, and the really cool benefit of this is the fact that if you throw your Cold Snap and direct impact them and then the Cold Snap falls to the ground, you get essentially double the amount of grenade energy you would if you just threw the Cold Snap on the ground. And once you get the technique of this down, you can have pretty much infinite grenades at all times, which just means you can freeze people at all times. Now, the other side benefit of this is the fact that since you are getting double Cold Snap grenades, you essentially can also have double stasis turrets. With this, you can throw out 2 stasis turrets just to cause mass destruction, or you can have 1 stasis turret out at a time and save another one for later, or if you want to lock down 2 different areas and say something like a raid, this exotic will have you covered. Again, don't be scared to use your grenade energy because you will have that permanent 500% increased grenade recharge rate at all times, and this just means you'll be able to lock down every single area of the battlefield whenever you need to. But now let's jump into the final thing that's going to play a massive part into this, and that is going to be our artifact. They have some pretty crazy perks that synergize with this, and the first one is going to be Hell the Storms. Shattering encased targets and stasis crystals deals increased damage. Shattering stasis crystals release shards of ice that damage and slow targets. So essentially, this artifact perk is Whisper of Fissures, and they will stack together, so you're going to do even more damage when you break those crystals or shatter the frozen targets. But on top of that, now if you destroy a stasis crystal, not only are you getting all the other benefits we've already went over, but you now are also going to release shards that go out and slow enemies. This is very nice for doing some additional damage, and if you're breaking shards like crazy all the time, this just means now if enemies aren't frozen on the battlefield, they're gonna for sure be slowed. Another cool part of this is the fact that if you shoot 1 stasis crystal and these shards fly out and hit other stasis crystals, they can break, and you can cause this mass chain reaction of stasis crystal explosions, and that can lead to a ton of damage and a ton of ad clear. Now, our next artifact perk is going to be Pillar of Ice. So defeating an encased combatant spawns stasis crystals. So if Verglas Curve wasn't enough to have stasis crystals at all times, this will for sure be enough. So now every single time you defeat a frozen target, it will make a stasis crystal. This works essentially just like Headstone, but you don't have to hit a headshot. And since you're already going to freeze everything on the battlefield, This just means more stasis crystals can spawn. These stasis crystals synergize with everything in your subclass and even with things like Hell of a Storm, and it just further takes this build to the next level. Now, the other artifact perks in this build don't matter too much, but if there's one I would recommend taking, it's going to be Dragon Spite. So breaking a combatant shield with a strand or stasis weapon has a chance to suspend or freeze that combatant. Since you are using a stasis weapon, and if you take the shield off, you do have a chance to freeze them, this isn't the strongest artifact perk by any means, but you will be able to take advantage of this because you are going to be running a stasis weapon. But for sure, the main two artifact perks are going to be Pillar of Ice and Hell of a Storm. But enough with the artifact. If we take a look at our stats, I would definitely recommend 100 Resilience. This is going to be very strong for survivability. Again, pairing that with Whisper of Chains, you're going to be pretty much unkillable since nothing can shoot you. And then for the ones that can, you're just going to be able to tank a lot of their damage. Now, next up is 100 Discipline, so you can throw your grenade a lot more often. Again, your stasis turrets or your normal cold snaps, you want to be able to spam these as much as possible to freeze everything on the battlefield. And then finally, if you have points left over, I would definitely recommend 100 Recovery just so you can get your Rift energy up a lot. This will again will just further help out your survivability because I would definitely recommend running Healing Rift. But now let's jump over into armor mods. And if you'd like to see an in-depth breakdown of this build, be sure to head over to Mobalytics. I will link everything down below, and you can read over everything over there while I go over it in the video. But all right, starting off with the helmet, we have Harmonic Sight. So rapid stasis weapon fight on blows, create an orb of powers. Since we're going to be able to get a bunch of multi-kills with our stasis bow, we can make orbs, and this will play into armor charge alongside giving us some extra super energy. Now, next up is Heavy Ammo Finder. So increase the drop chance of heavy ammo on a kill. This is nice just to get some extra heavy ammo. Since we are taking exotic primary, this will proc more often, which again will just lead to more heavy ammo. And next up is Dynamo. So reduces super cooldown when using your class ability near targets. Now, this one is honestly up to you what you want to run. If you are playing a team content, taking a heavy ammo scout so you can also make heavy ammo for your teammates is very nice. But things like assets and hands-on don't really work super well in this build because everything you're doing is supposed to freeze enemies and not really get kills. But with Dynamo, since I am running 100 Recovery, this means I can spam the Rift a little bit more often so I can just get some extra super energy. But again, you can really swap this out for whatever you want to. Now, for our gauntlets, a Harmonic Loader, so increase the reload speed of stasis weapons. I like to take this just so I can have maximum uptime on a Verglas Curve. But if you are taking this, I definitely would recommend running a different stasis weapon, something like Colt Converge, just so you increase the reload speed to get your DPS up. But again, you can also swap this out, but this is just something I personally like to take. The next up is Bolstering Detonation. So it grants class ability energy when you cause damage with a grenade. This is nice because since you can throw your grenade all the time, you can always get extra class ability energy. And what's really cool with this is the fact that your stasis turret, when it shoots an enemy, it will actually proc this. So just some extra class ability energy in the back, which is nice, again, because that can help proc Dynamo and keep you up with a Healing Rift. And then finally for the arms, Grenade Kickstart. So when your grenade energy is fully expended, your armor charge is consumed and you gain grenade energy for each armor charge used. This is going to be the main mod that is taking advantage of armor charge with this build. So you're going to have permanent uptime with this. You're going to have 3 armor charge stacks at all times, and you just get the most amount of grenade energy back to spam those turrets or just normal cold snap grenades. And now for your chest piece, always make sure you're running resistant mods. Just swap these out for whatever content you're going into. There's nothing on here that you drastically need to take to make this build work. So again, just swap these flavors out for whatever thing you're going into. Now for your boots, I would definitely recommend a recuperation, so replenishes health each time you pick up an orb of power. Since you're going to be able to make orbs all the time, this just means now this will help out your survivability a lot. And then next up is Better Already, so your health begins to regenerate immediately after picking up an orb of power. This is nice because this synergizes extremely well with recuperation. With recuperation, you get a bump of health, and then you also start the regeneration to get to max. Since you are freezing everything on the battlefield, nothing's shooting you too much, you can actually take advantage of Better Already a lot with this build because you can just grab an orb, hide, or again, things are frozen everywhere, so nothing's going to be able to hit you. And these paired with Whisper of Chains, your resilience, and even your Healing Rift, this is where a lot of your survivability will come with this build. And then finally, I like to take an Innervation, so it reduces grenade cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power. This is going to be very nice because again, you can spam grenades even more often, and you're looking out for orbs anyway to proc armor charge for grenade kickstart, which again will just further give you even more grenade energy. And finally, for our class item, I do like to take a Bomber, so it reduces grenade cooldown when using your class ability. Since I can spam my Rift a lot with that 100 recovery, this just means I can get some extra grenade energy now. Next up is Proximity Ward, so gaining powerful overshield while performing your finisher. This is very nice for further increasing your survivability. If you're ever in a sticky situation, you can just get a finisher off and you have this very powerful overshield and you're pretty much unkillable. Then finally, Powerful Attraction, so automatically collects narrow orbs of power when you activate your class ability. Since you want to collect orbs all the time with this build for all of your leg mods and even your grenade kickstart, this just means now whenever you place your Rift, you can collect them in an AoE, and since you can place your Rift a lot, this is very nice to have. But that is pretty much the build. As a recap, all you want to do is make sure sure you're spamming as many grenades as possible. That can either be your cold snap normally or your stasis turret. On top of that, you want to make sure you can shoot as many crystals as possible with things like Verglas Curve, so that can play into all of your benefits of destroying these crystals or getting damage reduction. And on top of that, for destroying those crystals, you also do have things like your artifact perks to further play into that, and this just becomes a crazy good crowd control and crazy good ad clear build. Now, like I do at the end of all these videos, if you were curious about my transmog, this is what I'm running. I definitely went for a very ice themed look with this. I think it turned out actually looking really cool. I took advantage of some of the new dawning armor alongside some of the new dungeon armor, and I think it turned out really great. So if you want to make your warlock look like this, definitely be sure to copy it down. But all right, that is going to do it all for me. Let me know what you all think about this build in the comments below. I know Stasis Warlock has always been one of the strongest builds for warlocks to play, and with this season specifically, and as time went on with new weapons that we've gotten, this has become the ultimate Stasis Warlock build. Again, you're going to be unkillable, you can spam grenades all the time, and it is by far the best crowd control in the game. Anyways though, I really hope you all enjoyed it. I wish you all the best of luck on getting everything put together for this build, but thank you all so much for watching, and have a great day. Peace. Also, don't forget to use my Raid Shadow Legends link in the description or scan my QR code to get awesome champions for new players.